We're always told that history is written on the battlefield, but what if I told you the most important war of our time isn't being fought there at all? What if it's being fought not with soldiers, but with scientists? Not for territory, but for technology. Well, that's the story we're diving into today. Okay, picture this. The date is March 2nd, 2026. And the news is just pure chaos. You've got headlines flashing across every screen. 3 U.S. fighter jets shot down over Kuwait. The initial report says friendly fire, but honestly, nobody's really sure what's going on. And it doesn't stop there. This isn't some isolated incident. The crisis is expanding fast. More troops are being deployed as the conflict just widens across multiple fronts. Tensions are through the roof, and you can bet the Pentagon is in a state of, let's say, quiet panic. And then the shockwave hits the economy. We're talking tankers struck near the Strait of Hormuz. Just one of the most critical energy choke points on the entire planet. And of course, the markets, they react instantly. All of a sudden, the question isn't if oil is going to hit $100 a barrel, it's when. The entire global economy, what's in your wallet, it's all on the line. The whole world is just holding its breath. So how did it come to this? I mean, it's so easy to get lost in the fog of war, right? The missile strikes, the politics. But the truth is, the real reason for all this chaos, the seeds were planted years before, not in the desert, but in labs and on factory floors. To really understand what's happening in this 2026 scenario, we have to look past those battlefield headlines. We've got to explore a totally different kind of power, a different kind of war. And it all revolves around one single powerful idea. And that idea is called industrial sovereignty. So what does that actually mean? Well, think of it this way. It's about self-reliance. It's a country's ability to make the stuff it absolutely needs. I'm talking everything from fighter jets to your smartphone without having to ask a rival for a key ingredient. In a world this fractured, being dependent on someone else is a massive weakness. And when it comes to weakness, the United States has a huge one. Just look at this number, 100%. According to the U.S. Geological Survey, that's how much the U.S. relies on imports for some critical minerals. And one of the most important minerals on that list? Graphite. Now, check out this chart. It lays the problem bare. Graphite is absolutely essential for the anode in pretty much every lithium-ion battery. And as you can see, one country, China, processes over 90% of the world's entire supply. That's not just, being a market leader. That's a strategic stranglehold. For years, the whole great power competition thing was framed as this big scramble for resources, stuff buried in the ground. Countries were fighting over lithium deposits and cobalt mines. But that whole game, it's changing. The new race isn't about what you can dig up from the earth. It's about what you can create in a lab. It's a race to engineer your way out of dependency. And that brings us to the tech solution that's basically rewriting the rules of the game. It's this massive pivot away from digging and towards designing. And it's all centered on one of the most basic elements there is, carbon. There's this idea from our source material that just nails it. Dependency is a weakness, but material science is the ultimate weapon for industrial sovereignty. This isn't just about building a better battery for your car. This is a strategic move to reclaim control over the entire future of manufacturing. So what can this new weapon actually do? Let's talk about synthetic graphite. You want faster charging? How about up to 30% faster? You want your batteries to last longer? We're talking up to 4 times longer. And get this, you can do it all with up to 90% lower CO2 emissions. It solves the performance problem, the longevity problem, and the dependency problem, all in one shot. This slide does a brilliant job of showing how new tech gives countries strategic options. And it's not just about synthetic graphite. Take a look at that second row, sodium-ion batteries. Their biggest strength is using cheap, abundant materials. So geopolitically, what does that mean? It means you can completely sidestep the supply chains for lithium and cobalt. And then you have other lithium variants with the highest energy density. Each technology is like a different tool in the toolbox, letting a nation avoid those choke points. Flexibility itself becomes a form of power. Okay, so the technology gives you a path to independence. But how do countries actually turn that potential into reality? Well, it turns out there's a specific playbook, a new great game with some very clear rules and strategic moves. And the key thing here is that this is a deliberate, step-by-step strategy. It's not random. As you can see, it all starts with figuring out where you're vulnerable. Then you build up strategic stockpiles, like the US is doing with Project Vault. You team up with friendly countries, you use money to kickstart key projects, and you invest heavily in the technology that turns raw dirt into high-tech components. And yeah, finally, you protect your new industries. It's a full-spectrum national strategy.
And listen, this isn't just some theory on a PowerPoint. Look at this timeline. It shows the game is already being played. In 2023, China makes its move, graphite export controls. Early 2026, a country rich in resources like Zimbabwe says, nope, you can't just take our raw stuff anymore. Then the West counters, launching stockpiles and forming a massive 54-nation trading bloc. It's like a global chess match, and the pieces are moving right now.
Look, I know this all sounds like high-level geopolitical stuff, but this hidden war for industrial sovereignty, it has a very, very real impact on jobs, on the economy, and on your future. So let's break down the bottom line. Bringing all these critical supply chains back home is creating a massive jobs boom. We are seeing huge demand for engineers, geologists, and process technicians. These are the people who are going to build and run the mines, the refineries, and the battery factories of the future. This is a fundamental rewiring of the industrial job market. And that brings us right back to where we started. Those crazy headlines from March 2026, the fighter jets, the oil shocks, those are just the symptoms. The real fight, the battle that is truly going to define the century, is being fought right here, in the labs that invent these new materials and on the factory floors that build them. So yeah, forget the great scramble for what's in the ground. That era is over. The great race to engineer what we need right where we need it, that has just begun. And the only question left is, who's going to win?